I wonder whether I should go and see what his problem is. Hang on, his text has come up. But he intends to be here. He intends to zoom in.
It's not come up through the system yet.
Shall I ring him?
There is a Dominic Beman waiting in the lobby.
Yeah, they're from Deloitte. They're going to do a presentation.
Was Steve Martin about it?
Yes, but he was trying to catch the red eye this morning. And it's not due until 9:15. So he intends to be here. And I left before he could even confirm his flight. So.
Dedication, George. Inspiration.
We've got a quorum in now. Thank you.
Don't go that far.
So that was Joe. He can't get in. He's trying to get in, but there's a problem with it. So I don't know.
So the quorum requirements, we've got it.
Yep.
And then what? 3 in the room, is it?
No, you can count the people on the Zoom.
Online.
Online counts.
Good. Yep. Well, in that case, we'll play on recording them as apologies and see if they can arrive and record them as late. Any changes to the conflicts of interest with items in the agenda, please? Sounds like a resounding no. Move on then. Thank you. We've got the confirmation of the minutes from the previous meeting, 20th of May. And the resolution kindly provided by yourself, Margaret, that the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee held on 20th May be confirmed as true and accurate record. Are there any alterations people would raise?
Tēnā e tautoko.
Tēnā koe pēnā. Oh, yeah. And do we have someone to second that motion? Oh,
Jack.
thank you, Jack. So is that all right, Peter? Moving it. Jack second. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? No. Thank you. Are there any matters arising? And it's not on the agenda, but are there any matters arising from the minutes? They're in the body of the reports.
I think that everything seemed to be covered from my perspective in the agenda papers.
Yep. Okay, well, let's move then to the action sheet. And the receipt of the action sheet. For receiving, do we have a person to move receiving the action sheet, please?
Happy to move it.
I'm happy.
Peter, tautoko. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Discussion, please.
Chair, everything that's on the action sheet has been actioned and or is on the agenda today.
Is it that easy?
Yep, that easy.
Yep.
All right.
Till Deloitte's get here. Yeah.
So the next item is a Deloitte presentation.
I'll just bring them on. They're just online.
Thank you. Guys, move quickly.
And we've got Amy Dove and Dominic.
Yep.
Morning, Amy.
Good morning.
Welcome to the meeting. Let's hand it over to you to work us through your presentation, please, which is obviously going to be a large and difficult subject in the future. Given Gareth Morgan's item in the paper this morning, or even he thought it was himself.
I don't know if he's on.
AI generated. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone, for having us. We thought we'd take you through some material, so I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully that comes through to everyone as we work through this. But let me know if in the next moment or so this doesn't appear, and we'll try something else. Just by way of introduction, Dom Salmon, I'm a director in our forensic practice, and the forensic practice is around 30 people who full-time spend their time in organisations, investigate integrity-related issues, that's dishonesty type offences, fraud, bribery, corruption, that type of thing. And then the rest of our time is spent supporting clients from a prevention and detection perspective, so stopping things from happening before they do, which is really the focus of this discussion this morning. I'll hand over to Amy to introduce herself before we get into the material.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Amy Dove Tokunga. Thank you very much for having us this morning. I'm the partner that's responsible for our risk and analytics team and does the analytics that we're going to talk about today. So very glad to share with you what we've done and answer any questions that you have. And yes, very glad to talk about all things AI. And so glad to be here and good to see Peter Lucas Jones again. Talking about AI is always good.
Thanks, Amy. We thought what would be useful as a starting point would be just to provide a reminder of the programme that we've been delivering upon. So over the last 6 or 7 years, I'm really pleased to have been supporting the Council deliver components of the fraud and corruption programme of work that's been in place. And this has been an iterative programme, and it's been targeted. So I'll take you through the components that we've got on the screen. A few years back, some benchmarking was done by Council to benchmark its counter-fraud programme against best practice. There's been some training, so education and awareness is a key component of prevention and detection, and there's been different initiatives that we've been really pleased to be able to support Council with there. There's been e-learning, there's been in-person sessions that we've run. Fraud and corruption risk assessment, so a targeted risk assessment, particularly around the grants programme that was in place. This was a couple of years ago. And then the detection analytics, which we've supported with over the last couple of years, which is the focus of this discussion. So that's running targeted testing across the large data sets that Council holds to help understand patterns, anomalies, irregularities that may exist in there. So in terms of the different types of analytics that has been done and can be done, we'll talk about what has been done first. So we've got a different suite of tests that we support organisations with, and 4 out of 6 of our standard modules have been delivered over last year and this year at Council. Starting on the left-hand side, related parties, we completed that last year. Related parties takes different data sets. It takes Council's vendor master file data, and it takes the employee master file data and company's office data as well. And what we're looking to do there is understand the connections that might be in place between vendors and or employees, some of which may be known to Council, some of which may not be known to Council. And this is a really effective test to understand those relationships that might be in place that we weren't aware of and may be something that we need to follow up upon. So what I mean by that is undeclared conflicts is something that often comes out of this, a relationship between a vendor and an employee that we may not have known about. The analytics help surface that, and then that provides Council with an opportunity to go and complete some follow-up work to help understand whether or not that was a relationship that should have been declared, or whether or not there's an improper relationship there. I'm going to jump over to the right-hand side just to keep it chronological to sensitive expenditure. So last year we also ran sensitive expenditure testing, which is where we take claim data, credit card transactional data, travel card data, fuel card data, and we profile that to help understand A, the different types of spend that have been occurring, and B, whether or not there's any trends that. So that's all the discretionary spend kind of analysis. Coming back to the left-hand side for our 2 that we've completed very recently with Council, accounts payable is a review of essentially the accounts payable data that sits in Council, and that has a series of tests built into it to identify individual risk items, and what we're talking about here is things like personal email addresses being used on vendor invoices, tax codes that aren't there or are in the wrong format, low invoice numbers, all of the different flags that we know exist for fraudulent invoices and transactions. And so we see what those flags are at an individual level by vendor, but then also roll it up and create some risk scoring that enables council to understand, well, who are the vendors that we have and where is the spend that we're making that we could consider higher risk, and then do we need to take any action as a result of identifying those higher risk relationships or suppliers or areas of spend. So that's about understanding risk in the accounts payable process. And then the final one that we've recently completed is bank payments. And bank payments is taking the spend information directly from the banks and looking to see whether or not there are any anomalies or patterns in that data that we know could be of interest from a fraud perspective. And what I mean there is things like we make payments to certain vendors, but we switch bank accounts because we know that that's a pattern that people might follow if they're looking to make one-off spend. Or do we have multiple bank account numbers for the same vendor? Or do we have multiple vendors with the same bank account number? And this allows us to understand quite quickly whether or not we've got patterns that are of concern. And again, that's for council to take that information and make some decisions as to whether or not it requires follow-up. So that's an overview of the modules that we've completed over the last couple of years. I'll move on to the next slide. I think Amy's going to talk a little bit about how we've completed that.
Thanks, Don. So as Don described, we take in data that comes from council. This is generally in spreadsheets or comma-separated value files. We then go through a data cleansing process, so joining together all of the different pieces of information so that we can start to build a view. So then we do our analysis. That all comes into a SQL database. And we do our analysis, all the detection described, all of that happens within the SQL environment. And then we take that information and we put it into visual format, so into graphs, interactive graphs in Tableau that is then turned over to council to look at the information and do the further follow-up as required. Here at the bottom is just a few of those visualizations, but the Tableau dashboard is designed to be an interactive tool so that you can look at the different tests that we've done, look from different populations, look at different time periods, and be able to drill all the way down into the transactional level detail that we have for each of the different dashboards and tests. Would it make sense to pause and take any questions at this stage about the process that we've done? Or because next we're going to talk a little bit about what we see on the horizon more broadly. But yes, we have a question.
Go to Joe.
Yeah, kia ora, everybody. Joe Carr here. Look, I just wonder if you've got the most basic of tests. If something hasn't gone out to CPP, competitive pricing procedure, and it exceeds the threshold of say 50K, does that spring an inquiry alarm up? Because that's pretty fundamental, and I just wonder what policies we've got in place there. You know, where the thresholds sit for purchasing. Yep. Thank you.
I can jump in there, Amy, if that's okay. Yeah, that's a really good question. So what we're talking about here is standardized tests that we run at multiple clients. Each client will have different requirements in terms of thresholds that they need to meet to go out to market. So what we could really easily do, or what council can do with the information that they've got, is understand where we've spent more than $50,000, if that is the threshold of interest, and then take that population, and there would need to be some steps taken outside of the analytics to understand whether or not a competitive pricing process was followed, because that CPP data, to the extent that it exists, isn't something that's ingested into the analytics testing as part of our standard test. And that's purely because each client will have different thresholds and different types of information that would need to be ingested there. But certainly that's something that could be done using the data that sits in the tests.
Yeah, oh, thank you. I'd support that NRC's process was nuanced to incorporate that.
And I'll just add, we do a split transaction test. So we do look at grouping transactions to on the accounts payable. We look at grouping transactions to particular vendors and payers and add up numbers of transactions within a period of time to see if they meet particular thresholds. So we do some of that at a generic level, but it is not joined, like Dom said, it to the competitive pricing information, which is very much in line of the future state of where this type of analytics is going, and the ability to incorporate broader data sets like that. So, yes.
Thank you.
Jack?
Thank you, George. Yeah, thank you. Look, correct me if you're about to deal with this, but if not, my concern is around fraud. I really regard supplier invoicing fraud, because I've had experience of it in another organisation a couple of times. My questions are, how is approval of invoicing and raising of purchase orders themselves managed? Are they managed to be checked? And also, how are supplier bona fides established? Because we've had instances where in the past, well, not this organisation, but in Auckland, where millions of dollars was actually just stolen because of creation of fake suppliers and then invoicing going out. And what happened was that the director involved, who was guilty, had created new suppliers and then had ultimate control over the approval of the entire process, got away with it for years by saying, well, his process was actually more exhaustive than the current process because he had 3 more extra check steps, which of course he all controlled. So it was bent as hell. I don't see anything here in what I've been reading in the agenda that says that we cover those things. Will you be covering that, or can you cover that off now? Thank you.
Sure. I think we can cover some of it. So some of it is covered in the test that we look at. So we're looking at from the payment data. So the information is coming out of the accounts payable system. So outside of the invoices, I will say, and through the bank payments. And we do, I'm not saying we have with your data, but these tests are designed to pick up unusual patterns of behavior to particular suppliers or vendors, or behavior of the people that are inputting the information into the system. So some of those tests are looking at groupings of when invoices were paid and the sequential numbers that are coming through with invoices. So there are a few tests in here that would catch those patterns of behavior, but we are not looking at the invoices or the approval systems in the data that we are working with now. And Dom, I'll let you add there.
Okay, what about the bona fides of the actual suppliers themselves? How have they been established? I'm more worried about fictitious suppliers than sort of aberrant behaviour by other suppliers.
We have an answer here at the table for you, possibly, Jack. Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. On page 62 of the agenda, under the fraud, corruption and dishonesty report, the supplier invoice fraud is mentioned as one of the risks there, and the controls in place are delegation limits, authorization process, dual signatory procedure to release payments. There's segregation of duties as well, in terms of who can raise the purchase order, who approves the purchase order, and also our monthly actual versus budget reporting and review. That's the processes or the controls we have in place to address supplier invoice fraud.
Sounds like the right answer, Bruce. Thank you.
I have a question for Dominic and Amy, please. When you talk about the data received, I get the idea that you're just talking about the data received from this organisation internally, or are you looking at wider data sets beyond the organisation, for example, as related party issues? Who are those suppliers? Do you look at the company's registers and some of the other publicly available domains?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So in terms of the tests that have been done so far, the key kind of the key places where we'd source data is council itself in terms of master file data, the banks independently going to council's bank and requesting the data directly from them, and then company's office, as you've called out, is one of the sources which is incorporated into the related parties testing, where we're matching information not just from council but also against company's office, so we can understand whether or not there's links between addresses, names, telephone numbers, company names against company's office. And what that often does is it reveals links that we may not be able to. Example, a council employee, I'll just provide an example here. This isn't one that we've necessarily seen, but this is just an example of what could happen. A council employee has information on the NRC master file. They have a next of kin. The next of kin has a mobile phone number. The match between that mobile phone number might then appear as something that we see on one of the vendors from the company's office information. That's just one example of how some of the different kind of quite subtle links can be made. Amy, I don't know if you've got anything else that you'd want to add to that.
No, I think we covered it.
Okay, thank you. Will you carry on then?
Thank you. Yeah, we'll move to the next slide.
So I think one of the questions that was asked of us is to talk about what Deloitte is doing to continue to evolve the fraud detection analytics that we have and what we're seeing on the horizon, where we are seeing and spending time, particularly on the financial crime part of the work that we do, is the opportunity of using AI to both perpetuate as well as detect fraud. Creation of false invoices, as just described here, but also being able to use these tools to detect that, and how that will show up in how we are seeing that show up and how we're evolving our tests. What we're seeing evolve, across the industry is first by the ability to look at broader data sets than we have been able to before. AI creates the possibility to join together and interrogate larger data sets. So something that we see on the horizon is getting down to the invoice level and being able to ingest and understand what's happening at the invoice level and tying that in as a data set. It's obviously very rich for the reasons that we talked about before. So that's one of an example of the types of things that are on the horizon. Dom, do you want to talk about some of the others?
Yeah, and this is building on Amy's point, but also Jack, to your question. One of the most common fraud schemes, the most common fraud scheme, I should say, in New Zealand today is still false invoicing. So despite kind of the change in the technology landscape and the sophistication of some of the ways fraud's perpetuated now, the old-fashioned kind of fake invoice is still one of the biggest risks to organizations. So that remains as a key risk. Insider threat, we're calling that out here because the data that we have in relation to individuals, the ability for someone on the inside of the organization, as opposed to a supplier, to cause harm, financial harm, reputational harm, cultural harm by committing fraud is still really high. But we do have more and more data on individuals within the organization that can be ingested as part of these types of programs of analytics testing. Corruption risk, we want to call that out because clearly for council that's going to remain a key risk going forward. The very nature of the role that lots of our people have at council means that risk remains, and the ability for people to do the wrong thing in exchange for a benefit from an external party or a member of the public or whoever it might be exists. Data egress, we wanted to talk a little bit about that because we're seeing more and more instances of information, IP, customer data, supplier data, whatever it might be, leaving organizations inappropriately. And this is as a result of the growth in data that exists, but also the ability for people within the organization to access that data and access methods to extract that data. I mean, everyone's got email. Everyone has access to things like Gmail accounts and Dropbox and share file sites and USB sticks and all of these different things that can be used to move data outside of the organization. So we do see that as something that's growing as a threat and changing, and we're becoming more and more involved in data egress type investigation activities.
I'll just add there, Don, we're also seeing that connected to the use of generative AI tools. Correct. Where information is being put into ChatGPT from within organizations that shouldn't be. And so training and understanding about how those tools work and governance around those tools is definitely part of what we are seeing a need for in that area.
Yeah. And then the testing that we've talked about today is rules-based. It's multiple data sets, albeit constrained to those data sets. I think what we're going to see more and more of in the future is a need to connect disparate data sets. So we've talked a little bit about invoices and relationships with vendors as an example, and taking internal data with companies' office data and doing some matching on that. There's a growing need, and something we're becoming more involved in is taking other data sets which may not directly point to a link between a vendor and one of council's people, but can help us understand, well, okay, if there's no link there, do we have a contract management problem because we ingest contract data? Do we ingest other data sources and put more and more data into the mix for some rules-based testing, but also for kind of the use of AI to help understand different types of anomalies which rules-based testing doesn't help answer. Amy, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add to that.
No, I think that covers it. The just ability to look at more data sets in new ways and look for patterns, outliers, and larger and different sets of data is really where we see things heading and where we're focused on evolving the testing.
Okay. Any questions from council? Yes, John.
Worry about the AI. I don't really understand it, but jeepers, they seem to corrupt everything. So I hope we don't become reliant on AI to the point where it might become a risk.
Yes, I'd say there's absolutely all kinds of benefits, but all kinds of risks. And one of the key things with AI is for organizations to be in control of it and have strong governance plans. And AI should be controlled by humans and by organizations. And there are it should not be brought into an organization. Really, the technology itself is just one part of it, but there are a lot of things that we can and should do to have responsible and trustworthy use of AI. The risks are absolutely are there, but they can and should be managed.
Thank you. Joe?
Oh, yeah, thanks, George. Yeah, I think one potential risk is if we've got, like we have for audit and risk, a fully documented processes, we're actually telling people how to use the system, i.e. avoid it. And I think you need a suite of stuff that's actually not spelt out like in our documents. That's for covering off internal corruption, and maybe that's where Deloitte can help us if they've got an algorithm that's not completely known. I think it'd be quite useful. Cheers.
DM, can you help us?
I don't think I'm that clever to create algorithms, George, but my question to both Dominic and Amy is, when you did your testing and also the development of this, how was it comparative to other testing, and I don't want names, to other testing nationally that that Deloitte had potentially have done? And was there any clear red flags that you may have highlighted to Bruce and others whilst doing this?
Yeah. Dom, I'll let you answer the specifics, but I will say that these groupings of testing that we do this for a large number of organizations across the country and on a regular basis, many like yourselves on an annual. Not as many, in some are, frankly, you all are very diligent and deliberate about your testing. Not all organizations are as quite as consistent and diligent, but we do these same tests across a large number of organizations across the country. And Dom, I'll let you answer the other parts.
Yeah, I would like to just reiterate that the targeted way in which testing has been completed is really pleasing to see. It's not been ad hoc, it's been risk focused, and the order of the testing has reflected that kind of risk-based approach that Council has taken. With respect to the results that we see, and this won't be considered a particularly helpful answer, but there's lots of anomalies and lots of outliers that exist in every single organisation where we complete this testing. We group transactions or relationships, and there's, in some of the tests, risk-based scoring that applies a risk to them. Council is no different to other organisations in that there were things that were flagged as high risk. There were relationships that were revealed through the testing. There were groups of transactions that were linked that perhaps Council wasn't aware of. But then the so what from that is something that we're not particularly involved in. We hand the results back to Council, and Council then does some work to understand whether or not there's any impropriety there. So I know that there was some follow-up work done in relation to some of the tests. Whether or not that revealed an issue or a fraud or an integrity matter, I'm not clear on. There'll be others who can answer that. But the results were really typical for organisations where we run this, in that there were lots of things that were flagged. It's just a question of whether or not those things that were flagged were false positives, and that's something that perhaps someone in Council is better placed to answer as a result of the follow-up work that's been done. So sorry, that's not a very helpful answer.
No, that's fine. Thanks, Dominic. Thanks, Amy.
If I can make a follow-up comment, we do obviously review the results from Deloitte, and I think there was, on one occasion, we picked up a relationship that was improper, for want of a better word, and that resulted in the follow-up investigation into that relationship that was reported through to Council through the fraud reporting. So it has proven to be worth its weight, and kind of highlighting any discrepancies, and without that analytics, we wouldn't have picked that one up. So we are seeing results through it, and thankfully not a lot of results. So it's generally a clean bill of health, and there's a few things that come up as anomalies, but they are explainable. So I find it a very useful and revealing process.
I think that's the most important thing. That's useful and revealing to management. It's one of those strange ones. A zero result is what you ask for, but a zero result doesn't actually say that you're doing the job completely. So, anything else before we move on? Amy, Dominic?
That was all that we were planning on covering. Thank you for allowing us to join you this morning.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks very much. Just one final point, just on that topic. I think there is a lot of value in the preventative side of things that running this testing has. It's useful for people to be aware that this type of activity is completed by Council. And that in itself can have a preventative effect on people doing the wrong thing if they know that council's taking this type of approach to scrutinising its data. So that's really positive.
Well, thank you for your presentation this morning. Wish you well for the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Likewise. Thanks very much for having us.
Thank you.
Joe's point and last point.
Can I ask a question, please, Bruce? Almost forgotten what it is now. No. Do they operate on a random basis, on a consistent basis, or by referral?
We work closely with Deloitte, as I think Dominic said, to look at it from a risk-based perspective. And so we single out the different types of analytics we want undertaken each year.
Mm-hmm.
And they cast a net wide through all the data sets. So we don't interfere with that. They just get on with it. They use all the data that's available, and then they run it through the analytics and report that back to us, and then we follow up on the results.
Okay. So is there a period when there is a high risk of fraud occurring, or do you sort of like, when in fisheries, we just let them carry on for a little bit until we knew exactly what the pattern was, and then set a good trap and catch them completely? Because, you know, that's what crooks do. They keep coming back. So get away with it. They just keep coming back. So you wait until you've got all the stuff you need, and then throw the net around.
Yeah. No, essentially, we just do like the point in time, and we look at the year back. So we look at the previous year. So look at that whole year's data set, run the analytics, report that back to us, then we go through and review what's there. And if there's anything that's out of sorts, we act on it straight away. We don't set a trap.
Okay. Oh, good on you. Thank you.
I like that trap idea.
Well, you probably do it already anyway.
That's why you have cameras.
Yes, amongst other things. Yeah. But you know, crooks. And okay, we did some when I was at police college on fraud. The difficulty was proving intent. That was the hard part to nail in terms of the conviction. You could catch plenty of people making instances of doing the wrong thing, but the intent was the part that was very difficult to prove. So it had to be deliberate, repeated, consistent, and intent to deceive. So anyway, thank you. There something much more.
Through the chair, was
Yes,
there any identifiable risk that came back in that report that ended up in the result of major action, if I would put it that way? Bruce?
In terms of, there was one case that was identified where a staff member was a director of a company that was contracting back to an NRC, and that resulted in disciplinary action and formal warning undertaken. And like George says, trying to define that intent is quite a challenging part of that investigation. But yeah, that's been undertaken and completed. So, and that was reported back to council.
No further questions? We'll move then, please, to item 6.2, the internal audit schedule from Audit and Assurance Lead. Do we have a mover, please, to receive the report? Kia ora, Councillor Craw. And
Your second.
Sorry,
It wasn't me.
much better looking. It's Crawford.
As he
I'll let you
knows.
get away with that one.
Okay, what should I put? 2 JCs in the approval initials?
One would be a GC and the
Shaky
other one
ground
is
there,
a
brother.
Yeah,
Very shaky ground.
great day.
You can spell with a J.
Jack, would you be the second? Thank you.
Actually, I prefer not to. I'm not happy with attachment 1.
Okay. Second. Thank you, John. Okay. Not happy with attachment 1. Let's see what Mandy's got to say. Please walk us through your report, please, Mandy.
Attachment 1 just provides a bit more detail about the audits that are being completed, internal audits. The attachment, yeah.
I respond.
Yes.
I think you better.
Oh, thank you. Look, it's just that I can't really read it. I mean, it's a piece of a spreadsheet. It doesn't have all the text in it. And there's a couple of things in there. I mean, they're incomplete statements, incomplete sentences. So, I mean, okay, it may sound a bit petty, but I think that the main body of the report's fine. But when you get into the table, is it item 5? Oh, this my old bugbear, contract management audit. That was a bit of templating and providing to staff, and the current contract management program requires a review. And then it says in the auditor recommendation, contract administration requires a software. Software what? There's a few typos in there as well, but never mind. Can someone explain what that means? Sorry, we're talking about contract management audit, November 24, item 5. It's actually the 4th item, but it's numbered 5. Auditor recommendation, contract administration requires a software something.
Yes, please, Bruce.
Thanks, Jack. I'd refer you to page 22 of the agenda. It provides a more comprehensive update on that item 5 in relation to the contract management update. And it sets out in more detail what's summarised in that table in relation to item 5 in terms of the software management is required to actually facilitate improved contract management. I think that's been truncated on that table, unfortunately.
And part of it's cut off. We just need to make sure that the table parts are brought down so all the text are in there. It's hard to read in one place.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. Yet again, the right answer. Thank you. No further questions on that, George.
Thank you, Jack. Any other questions from councillors? Yes, thank you, Dan.
Noting that there are quite a number of high-risk matters in here, to you, Bruce, and to you, Jono. How is that impacting on the current capacity that you have at the moment within your team?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I'm very happy with the capacity that we have at the moment to undertake our internal audit program. Mandy's doing a fantastic job, and we're supported by the likes of Deloitte and the finance team as well. So I'm very comfortable with our level of resourcing to progress this work at the moment.
It does appear to be a lot of work. I mean, the first schedule of the audit cycle and the table, as Jack said, there's a lot of stuff there. So.
And historically, though, we didn't have somebody that was focused on internal audit. Now we have a resource that is focused on internal audit, and that's made a big difference. So
got capacity.
Got capacity.
Yep. Yep. And Chair, through yourself, I just note and acknowledge Bruce and Mandy for the fact that the focus that we've got on our internal and external audit process from what we as an organisation did sort of, I don't know, Bruce, if you've got any comment, you've been in your group for a while, but our focus on it and the level of work that we're doing in the audit space is significantly higher than what we've done historically. I don't have a measure of it or a percentage of increase, but it's good to see that we've got a focus in the area.
Well, just to back that up, I recall the audit and risk agenda 4 or 5 years ago might have had 2 items on it and nothing on internal audit at all. So I think the maturity's increased significantly.
And the climate of inspection continues to increase as well because internal audits hate them. Jack?
Thank you, George. Just referring back to the body of the report, talk about noticeably linking of documents to SharePoint sites or project management registers. Is SharePoint a bit of a risk for us? Or do we generally have risks with trying to marry up all our different databases that hasn't been covered to date?
Yes, I think SharePoint has been used with best intent as a contract management system. It's not a dedicated contract management system at all.
No.
The poor surrogate for that. So I think the issue is SharePoint works well for storage documents, but it doesn't work well for managing contracts. That's why the reason we need to look further afield to see if there's a better software solution to help with contract management.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Joseph?
Yeah, thanks, George. I just on that point, following up from what Jack was saying, is there any way especially with AI, that you can actually get a benchmark on if you're getting value for money across your activities. Because someone like Deloitte, with their involvement with so many companies, they might have some information or database that could actually help you there. Just wondered if that's covered.
Yeah, we can inquire with Deloitte. I'm not aware of anything at the moment, Joe, that I can provide an answer to you, but we can follow up with Deloitte and just see.
So what you're asking, Joe, is there any systems that Deloitte use that NRC could use, which would make their auditing simpler? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I do, and because AI is just such an incredibly powerful machine, and it's going to be more powerful as if you've got contracts and involve quantities and things like that. If one of these outfits like Deloitte could run it through it, and they might be able to put a yardstick over the where their pricing is central to what's the activity in New Zealand, something like that. I just wonder if that sort of tool's available yet. I see Deanne was shaking her head, so probably not.
I wasn't shaking my head at you, Joe. I was just saying that there are so many tools around. Poor old Bruce's team would have to be required to put a dedicated person to identify a pizza, because it's Peter's area, and it's forever changing and growing. But I think pointing to page 31 of the document, I'm not pushing us forward through the chair, but in item 3, it talks about you looking at a contract management tool potential. And I know that's a piece of work that you have got online. So I think to your question, Joe, the team have an answer there in their own document, in the following documentation.
Well, thank you. And just touching right into that page, we've got meet or exceed international best practice standards. Now, I know I was suggesting we actually did something beyond what's happening, but we've also got to watch that we don't get caught up into something that's so costly for a little gain. And but mindful when we want to exceed international best practice, where is this going? What's it going to cost if we actually step out there? So the word's balance, isn't it? Yeah.
Deanne, sorry, I have a question for you. Do you get any inkling of what the government, what Treasury in particular, is going to be turning its focus to in respect to these matters?
Oh, that's a big audacious question to ask. Simply put, I think the government focus is on technology, if I would put it that way, an opportunity to grow in that area, primarily in AI matters. It's scary, but I don't think they're afraid of that, because it's about, and Peter will know this, it is about the opportunity to bring in new economic opportunities for a growing country that is moving from primary industry into further technology. That's my thought, obviously, on where the positionality of technology is. In terms of de-risking and how we might de-risk here with what Bruce and Jono and Mindy have put in place, I think we're in a great position. And you're right, Bruce, even a year ago or a year and a half ago, we were very different in the way that we managed risk. And we are presenting far better data and information for this committee to be able to make better informed responses to council laws. So I've sort of added something in there, George. I'm hoping that's given you some depth to your question.
Yeah, thank you. Any further questions for this report? No? Good, let's move on then, go to item 6.3. As Dean's first, the risk management policy update. And could we please have a person to move the recommendations? First,
I'll move it.
received, thank you. Deanne, and seconded, Peter Lucas Jones.
Through the chair, I've only got one recommendation on that final draft of policy, is on page 31, last bullet point on 2 objectives, Bruce, is meet and exceed not only international best practices, could we possibly include New Zealand best practices? Because I think the Auditor General has some really good best practice models and expectations, and if they ever want to come and audit us, they're going around the world auditing everybody else, it'd be good for us to put that as a benchmark platform as well.
Absolutely happy to do that, Deanne.
Any other comments, questions for the authors? Council. Yes, please, Jay.
Look, I may be off the topic, but it just seemed to me that the risk seemed a bit low on financial risk. Are those risks actually gathered up in the other documentation? Because it seemed to me more about reputational and process risk rather than actual the endpoint financial risk. Can someone reassure me that I'm wrong here?
I think. Jack, you might be one agenda ahead of us.
No, I'm talking about the policy, risk management policy 6.3. Is that what we're talking about?
Oh, I don't know. Whereabouts is that then?
Well, the whole policy talks about risk. Is that what we're on? 6.3?
Yes. Yeah, so essentially the objectives, part 2.
Yep.
The intent there, through Chair, Jack, is to cover off all risks. So it definitely does include financial, reputational, operational, everything from the whole risk spectrum. So, and that's why under, I guess, further down the agenda on 6.5, we do that fraud, corruption, and dishonesty activity update, which is largely relating to financial matters. So yeah, definitely that is the intent. If you want to, would you like us to clarify that and make it a bit clearer?
Well, yeah, I think so. In the objectives, it basically talk about how we improve our processes around it. It doesn't actually talk about it doesn't actually set out an objective to prevent, like fraud and financial risks and stuff. So I don't know. I just thought maybe a slightly more upfront focus on that important element, because at the moment it seems to have a bit of an inward-looking focus on it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Can I just? Sorry, Bruce. I see slightly different. If that was my inclusion of the Auditor General's best practice guidelines, because it actually has financial risk in it, Jack, and I see things slightly different. So limit to interruption to business continuity, that implies around financial for me. But if you want it spelled out as financial fraud and thing, that's fine. But some of these points in point 3, 4 do allow for that financial. But if you want it spelled out, that's up to you. I mean, I'm happy with it as it is.
Okay, now I'm willing to take your expert's words for it. I just thought that as a bit of a layperson looking at it, there seems to be sort of an inward-looking focus on our own internal processes. But that's okay. If I'm willing to, I have full confidence in you, Deanne. Thank you.
I think there is a large requirement for the internal processes. When I was listening to Deloitte a little while ago, it's sort of like they came along after the fact. You want to prevent the fraud, and that sort of internal processes must be on point. So I think there should be a strong focus internally. I just wondered, Jack, if you wanted something added to the roles and responsibilities that's got a financial sense in there?
Only if I can get some other support for it. I'm just an outlier here. If everyone else is confident, then I'm not going to be a pedant. I'm happy to keep going.
Okay, let's see if Joe's going to come to the rescue.
Yeah, I look, I really appreciate what Deanne said, and she wanted us to include New Zealand best practice, and she quoted the Office of the Auditor General. I think we should actually spell it out that we reference the guidelines from the Office of the Auditor General, or the Comptroller and Auditor General, and actually are specific there about that particular government.
Could we
agency.
we added that to the key relevant documents? Would that satisfy you?
Yes, most definitely. Yeah. Because
So
what that means is we'll actually use that more throughout our council business, because there's lots of things that we'll reference it. For instance, assessing performance and stuff like that. Staff and so forth. They give us great guidelines, and you'll get lots of tools out of it. Yeah.
Any further comments? Any other matters?
So are we going to adopt Deanne's suggestion?
Well, Bruce said it was a good thing to do. Kyla was nodding.
Do we need to amend? Do we need to make a decision to amend it to adopt its inclusion?
Suggest maybe vote in action that we update the policy.
Yep, let's put that in the action point then, please, rather than a resolution, and it'll come back again next month. Is that right, Carl?
I'm just noting that this policy was for endorsement, then to go to full council for adoption. So we could add it, and it depends whether it goes to the next council meeting for adoption or comes back to this committee. Which isn't until November.
I think the chair endorsed based on that action, and then and we'll then go to the next council meeting for approval.
So just take it as an action item.
Yep, and it can be updated before it is put to full council for adoption.
Thank you. And that'll be your responsibility. Yep. Good. All right, let's move then, please, to 6.4. Back to Mandy, Audit and Assurance Lead. The activity update. Do we have a mover, please, to receive this report? Yes, let's try and get this right this time. Jack, seconded by Jeff. Mandy.
Taken as read.
Thank you. Yes, Deanne.
Thanks, Mandy. This is very comprehensive. I suppose this question is for Bruce and Jono. It's very clear here that central government decision making is potentially and severely impacting current and local decisions. What do you think is the way forward to equip you to mitigate these risks? I used this morning or yesterday morning's announcement on changes to resource consent and impact. These are all these lovely things that are coming your way. What do you think can help equip you mitigate these risks at this time? Because I'm assuming that's what you're talking about when you're looking at all these risks that very clearly point down to a little thing called Beehive in Wellington.
Bruce is looking at me, Deanne. Could I chair through yourself? Yeah, really good point, Deanne. And I think there's only so much we can mitigate, just to be completely honest. We do very actively engage both as a council and as a regional sector with our counterparts in Wellington. So we try very hard to make sure that we clearly understand the direction of travel for government and what they're trying to achieve and what they're proposing. And we have expertise within both our council and other regional sector to try and influence and support that direction of travel where we can. So we're making sure that we're clearly aware of what's coming our way, trying to influence it so that we get from our perspective anyway, the best outcome for our community. But the reality of it is there are a lot of things that are agreed, for example, within the coalition agreement, and those things are tracking their way through the system, and we need to be agile as they come out the other end to clearly understand when they're going to hit for us from an implementation perspective, and how we can best be prepared to implement those. I guess we are very much trying to make sure that we're not just sitting there as a no, but trying to proactively partner where we can to try and get the best outcome. And like just sitting there and saying, no, this is a silly idea is not going to achieve that. So we are proactively working in that space to try and work with the government to get the best outcome we can. But the reality is we're not in control of our own destiny in many of these situations. And I think the key for us is to make sure that we're as aware as we can. We work with our partners across the region to make sure that everyone is as well informed as we can be, and we take up those opportunities to influence when we can.
Thanks, Jono.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, George. Thank you, Mandy. It's a good report, this. It's really good. It indicates to councillors that staff are really monitoring all these risks all the time. So there's the shifts I agree with. Just with two little questions, and one is where are we? Dealing with aggressive people, psychological harm. I understand the justification for putting it into operational risk managed through health and safety incident reporting. My question is that I believe that this is a risk that is increasing because of the increased incidents of methamphetamine abuse in Northland, and and fear that it's only a matter of time before staff are affected. I mean, I was actually rammed by a guy out of his head one time about 4 years ago. He just took off and the police caught him. I mean, car on car. And it was just like the most unbelievable behaviour. And what I'm saying is the risks are probably going to get higher. And if they do, what will that mean for our processes? How will we, apart from how we deal with staff, are we confident that our processes would withstand scrutiny by, I don't know, anyone from ACC to lawyers and health, I don't know, the government departments that are charged with looking into this sort of a thing? I guess you've probably all considered this, but I'd like an answer. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. It is, I guess, one of the critical risks working with aggressive people, and we have put in place a number of controls, be that training, to officers visiting where there may be an aggressive person, noting where there are aggressive people in our GIS so we can ensure that those procedures are followed. I can't detail all of that critical risk and the controls because I don't have it in front of me. However, I'm more than happy to go back and with the health and safety team look at what are our controls around that, and are we, as you suggest, are we meeting what we need to be meeting in terms of how we're mitigating the risk there. So happy to take that back and follow up on that.
Yeah, it's about giving us councillors some sort of confidence that we're addressing it at every level. I think we are just wondering why that was removed from this matrix and put into another, part of our it being made purely operational. But anyway, I'll leave you to deal with that. And the other one is, look, I'm really happy with the increased level of risk around funding for Kari Dieback and PF 2050. Thank you. But the one further down, number 10, biosecurity incursions, I actually think it says here that those risks are the same. I would question that. I think our risks might be increasing because I mean, we've been very, very lucky in that, particularly because our chairman has been so successful in negotiating dollars from the government. But, you know, our luck is going to run out sooner or later, Jeff. So I think biosecurity incursions, to me, are imposing increased risks, mainly due to all the factors we know, climate change and more international travel. And I just don't think central government's going to be there to help us out all the time. We've been bloody lucky, but so I don't see that the incursion risks are the same. I really think they are definitely higher, and potentially will be higher in the future. I know Don isn't here to comment on it, but perhaps if that can be looked at. I don't want to go into too much depth of it, but I'd really like to see us look at that a bit more because, as we know, biosecurity incursions cost a lot of money. Thank you.
Just as I can respond, Chair, it does have a residual risk of 10, and so that gives it a likelihood that it's possible, which, and it is possible, we know that, and the severity is, the highest severity rating you can get, so I think it does indicate that it is still quite high at 10, so, but we're happy to take it back and have a look at it and go through Don.
So I guess what I meant was not so much, I think the assessment's correct in terms of the risk, but I'm talking about the financial risk to this organisation. They're just going to get higher. I just don't think there's any other way around it. It's a bit like flooding, it's going to cost us an awful lot more money no matter what the government throws at us. So if the financial risks are going to be higher, then surely the residual risk will be higher. But I would like you to have another look at it. Thank you.
Happy to do so.
Yeah, I guess most of them it's. Oh, sorry, John. Joe?
I agree with Jack on that. I actually outlined that as well. And it's actually the economy of Northland as well. It affects greatly. Thinking about Madagascar ragwort. I mean, you've got Kalupa. What's around the corner? They tell me Kalupa's not the worst thing we can get. So yeah.
Avian flu.
Dengue fever.
Yeah, so I was going to say the incursion risk remains high. It's our ability to mitigate it once it lands in the region. And I think that's what you're pointing out, that Jeff's done well so far. And I was interested to see the static level for Kalupa. And I wonder if Jeff had something to add to that as well, because you've been working on.
Well, the threat, John, has probably update you, is the threat of the government wanting to pull out of these contracts are pretty high on the list. They believe that Kalupa is, funnily enough, disappearing in the Bay of Islands. And we've all heard from the last couple of weeks of the sedimentation that's in the Bay of Islands. It's actually smothering some of it, but it's like Kikuyu, George. You put in as much dirt as you like on it, it'll come back pretty thick and ready to go. Loves it. So we're just working through that. Government is short of money. They're looking for any opportunity to pull out of stuff.
That's the bad news, Nick.
That's the bad news.
Yep, but that's the reality of it. Very good. Joe.
Oh, thank you, George. Yeah, just supporting John Blackwell regarding Madagascar and ragwort. It doesn't seem to have a home, i.e. there's not adequate ownership to this problem. It's really highly invasive right down around Kerry in the mid-north now. And as we know, you can't blanket spray a pasture for it because you wipe the pasture out. You've got some real issues, and I just think that's a real high risk that we've got to flag. We can't just hope and submit to government all the time. We should pivot on that one and get something underway. And probably the something is actually putting some resource into biocontrol mechanisms. Australia's got some biocontrol, but apparently it conflicts with their indigenous biodiversity. So there's an issue there that mightn't apply to us, but that one's just sitting out there with we've put no resource into it, and it appears no one else is. So before that gets answered by an appropriate person, are we dealing with risk pool in this agenda item? This item we're on now.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to I don't want to flow straight into risk pool, but I just want to stay with this Madagascan ragwort, please.
Good, Chair. And Jack, you might want to add to the kōrero. Kia ora, Joe. Madagascar ragwort was discussed, has been discussed at Council Workshop, and it was also discussed at the Biosecurity and Biodiversity Working Party. We did meet with Minister Hoggard with Pamu Farms a number of months ago. The direction there from the Minister was, yes, you need to work collectively with industry and councils, and central government is open to partnering with us. We have provided $25,000, I think it is off the top of my head, Jack, as a contribution towards building a business case with industry to have a look exactly at the point that you've raised there, Joe, around biological or potential biological controls. As everyone's well knows, A, it might not be a silver bullet, but B, it's really expensive as well. Yes, there's some good work that's been done in Australia. How that then translates into New Zealand would be part of the investigation into that biological control. My recollection is that dairy and Z
12,000.
12,000.
Beef and lamb 12.
Beef and lamb 12. Thank you very much, Chair. So a number of those industry reps or industry bodies have come to the table as well, and we're just in the process of putting together an agreement with everyone, or an MOU as to how we're going to work together to try and come up with a response to Madagascar ragwort. I think if NRC took it on by itself, it would be too big and expensive for us by ourselves. So we really do need to work, as the Minister suggested, in a consortium of those interested parties.
I'm not sure about the other councils.
I know we've been talking with the other councils. I'm not 100% aware of where those councils have got to, but they have not had Madagascar ragwort as one of their top incursion species that they've been concerned about. As we've talked about, biosecurity can be a bottomless pot.
Put it up at UNISA.
Yep, and it has been raised at UNISA. So for the top of the North Island councils, we can provide Don could potentially provide an email to councillors if there's interest, just to provide an update on where we're at, as was provided to the last Biosecurity and Biodiversity Working Party. Jack, I see you've got your hand up there too.
Yeah, thanks, George. Thank you, Jono. Yeah, you've covered. I agree. You've covered it all three of you, John, Joe, Jeff. Sorry, and Jono. And I agree with every word. But just to reassure you, Joe, that we've sort of got it in hand. But my little comment is in the chat that biosecurity incursions, that number 10 is actually for new incursions. So I don't think the staff would have assessed Madagascan ragwort as part of that, because it's not a new incursion, it's an established weed here. So it's just a point of pedantic point of information there. So it would Madagascan ragwort threats will be assessed as an operational risk, not as part of this, I would assume. I think I'd be right, wouldn't it? Would that be right, Jono? That is actually about new incursions, that particular section.
That particular one is, yes.
Yeah.
And I guess there's
Carry on.
I guess there is one question for us, Bruce, Chair, as to biosecurity incursions. These biosecurity risks are going to continue, as we've talked about, and it's how much we include all of those biosecurity risks here on this risk register. versus, Jack, we report them through the Biosecurity and Biodiversity Working Party and look at them as part of the Regional Pest Management Plan and how we want to tackle these things. So it's just something for us to consider as to how many of them we keep adding to the specific risk register.
Yeah, John, just to give a bit of good news, I remember I requested this a couple of years ago, or 2-3 years ago, and Catherine Lister put together a really good list of potential threats. It's fantastic. It includes, like mosquito-borne diseases and weeds and a whole bunch of things, because there's a huge range of them. There's annelid worms and there's, and there's a huge range of insects, as Jeff knows all about them. So what I'm saying is we do have a starting point to assess what the kind of what the range of biosecurity risk, if not being able to quantify them. So I still say that we need to be looking at what the residual risk here is. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
My question, actually, Jeff walked out the door, is around the comment around central government pulling out of their contracts. I'm assuming their MPI contracts, Jono, for Kalupra?
The ones that we're talking about for Kalupra is MPI contract, yes, Biosecurity New Zealand.
Oh, okay, just a clarification, because that would obviously, and this is that conflict through you, the chair, around the potential agriculture opportunities that we're looking at in iwi, to ensure that we're in partnering in this, Jono, to put some heat on MPI to solve the problem. Jack, for people in Wellington that we might be able to put some heat on to make sure it doesn't come away. Yeah.
I know Jono, Jeff, Don, myself and others, we're really in constant contact with MPI, and they probably hate our guts right now. I guess we're probably the squeakiest wheel.
I'm just suggesting that somewhere that, because we're sitting here and we have this privilege to be here, and both George and I sit in iwi spaces, that might be another foot on the pedal. So that's just a suggestion. It's not nothing needed if it's not. But through you, the chair, in terms of this table and sort of moving away around the biosecurity part, part of the risk we probably don't have on here, Jono and Bruce, is the impact of, we've got the elections coming up and the monitoring of what occurs from this Audit Risk Committee throughout that presence. I'm not worried about the elections. I'm worried about making sure who is monitoring and when because this will be our last Audit Risk Committee until the new council comes into play. Is that correct, Bruce?
Correct.
Yep. So what is I suppose, just in future, this is not needed now, and I don't need to adjust this. Maybe that there is something put in there around who's watching between the process of elections through this process of an Audit Risk Committee. It's just a suggestion.
Just a suggestion, interesting one. Let's get Joe first, and I've got a question back for Jack.
Just in response to Jono about where Madagascar and ragwort sits and the economic effect on the farms that we've observed in the far north is so profound that I think it should rate presence at audit and risk.
Regular item above and beyond a new incursion?
No, well, it's got to be seen as part of our risk profile. The economics stuff, I went with the chair and we looked at one of the potential dam sites, and there's quite a lot of horticulture going on, and there's an iwi one, and Madagascar and ragwort was right through that property, and I just think, well, how the hell are they going to control it with their, I think it was avocados, and because the sprays that you'd use, avocados are very susceptible to. So, I was just thinking the economics of this is huge. Yeah.
John B.
It's interesting, Madagascar ragwort, what effect it would have on our national pasture. And take into account my long association with Andrew Holgate, probably putting it at risk with the suggestion. Maybe there should be some trial work done down on his farm, actually in front of the window. And I'm quite happy to approach him to see if he's willing to take on some trial work for us. Thank you very much.
We may not add that to the action items. So just that sort of question, though. Clearly, there's an infestation to the north. I assume that it's now starting to march south. Is this Madagascar ragwort in other parts of the country? Do they recognise? Are we the outlier in this respect, Jeff?
I think it is. I've seen David Jelena, you might know. He's actually found it because you know what you're looking for. The farmers in the north, the only people really aware of it, especially in the far north. So there is sites around the Waikato and around Taranaki that people like David have travelled and just seen it on the side of the road or up at sites. But people aren't aware of it.
I was talking about his farm, Pickerel Road or something like
that. Yeah. So he's got plenty of it. So unless you're actually involved with it in the north, you probably wouldn't realise you've got it around the rest of the country at this moment. Because it took a while to get going in the far north. Like it's taken about 20 years to go from Mount Camel, blowing across to the peninsula, Karikari Peninsula, and then spread down. It's windborne.
Yeah.
But I would be very surprised if it's not already down there. We're selling hay, as you know. Hay is a big option for economic growth up in the Katoa area because it's early.
There she goes.
Away she goes. So the biggest thing I've had to talk to Andrew Hoggard and those sort of people involved is awareness. How do we get the awareness story out? Because it sounds very slow with biocontrols. We know chemical can do it and it's going to be very painful on any farmer that's got it. But how do you get the rest of the country aware of it? And I've brought that up a couple of times in meetings I've been at. It's even talking to the bank manager, about awareness of when he talks to farmers. It's that sort of awareness program that needs to be everywhere.
And the sort of production loss you're talking about?
We can only reference Pāmu Farms, 25% weight loss in their bulls over the time they've had it. So that's 80 kilograms of carcass weight. At the moment, it's about looking at $9 a kilo. Significant.
Yeah.
Not only that, the worst part is it costs you $500 a hectare to spray it. Okay, so you've got your production loss, plus you've got your costs are high. Now, that farm, weed sprayer most of my life spraying roadsides, and it becoming chemical resistant in places. That's one of the other threats that Jack hasn't brought up. Using glyphosate and metsulfurin for going on 35 to 40 years now. It's creating chemical resistance up highways of weeds. There's all this, if you put it in the basket, it's quite a big threat. It's the biggest threat I've seen. It's just I would not want this on my farm. It's been found up in Puipu, on the top of Puipu, up by the forest there. There's a farmer up there who's found 3 plants, not sure whether it came in. Who knows what it came in on? It was only because there was a farm consultant turned up, just randomly said, hey, you need to get rid of those weeds. 3 of them. So, it's a awareness story.
That easily. Jeff?
Yeah, look, I don't want to denigrate any of the comments. In fact, I agree with them wholeheartedly. Jeff's actually nailed it. But this sort of straying into biosecurity operational stuff because it's an operational risk. It's a weed that's already here. So, and it should really be in Table 3, included in Table 3, operational risks, because you've got clerpa in there and all that other stuff. So there should be an entry for Madagascar ragwort in terms of the financial economic risk to Northland's incredibly high. I rank it higher than gorse in the 1950s. That's how bad it is. It'll be pushing people off the land, I reckon, because there's no real chemical solution to this problem that doesn't destroy your pasture as well. So a lot of money needs to be spent in New Zealand on biological control. I'm talking maybe 10 to 12 million, but that's chicken feed compared to It could be 20 million. Sugar fee compared to the damage that we're getting from it. So, but anyway, it needs biosecurity and biodiversity working parties and the staff are on the case, but it needs to be assessed as an operational risk in table 3. Thank you.
Kia ora, Peter.
Oh, kia ora tātou. Something a little bit similar but a little bit different is also the conversion of farmland into carbon sinks. I think something for us to give some consideration to is the impact of that conversion or transformation on the local dairy produce, and then of course how that ends up costing consumers in so much as there not being enough of this or that for market supply and demand, and of course the increased cost there, and how we might monitor those types of risks in so much as our role as the lead agency on economic development for Northland might be concerned.
Response, Bruce? Anyone?
Don't really have a response. I'm not that familiar with that area of business.
And just to give a little bit of background, there's large tracts of quite valuable farmland that is being converted to carbon sinks, largely growing pine forests. And the situation there, of course, is carbon has a price, and a lot of landowners find it a better return on investment farming carbon than they are farming cows or either dairy or beef. But that of course has an impact on the consumer, the ratepayer. That's an increased price in beef. I mean, anyone that needs to buy beef will see that in the supermarket anywhere in Northland. But I just raised that to our attention because there's two sort of risks there that come to mind. One, of course, is one for the ratepayer. And then, of course, the other is for local businesses that are employing people on farms. I mention this is because you don't need a lot of people to farm trees, but we do need people to help farming businesses that are dealing with livestock. Just something I thought we should raise to the forefront of our own minds as elected officials and as representatives from the respective constituencies that we serve. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor. Further items inside this report? Discussion. Joe?
Yeah, look, I just support Peter Lucas on this one, and I don't know if this is the forum to actually do this, but once you've got a P radiata permanent forest, the land's derelict, it's heading into that, because you just all you're worried about is just keeping your trees alive and nothing else, because if they burn down or die, you've got to pay back the carbon. It's I don't know. You don't get any economic multipliers out of it, and you get the threat of any advantages. Very often it's overseas corporations who are just then requiring the overseas exchange earners of New Zealand to produce for them so they can get the money out of this country. The whole thing about it is fraught. And the one mitigating thing that you could have in it, you could assume that at some stage, because the equilibrium is reached when the forest is dying and renewing on its own, that you could have actually had a rule in there saying that it could only be a stepping stone transition into permanent native forest, because you can grow quite good native forest under it. But it's high risk because you can get a change of government policy and suddenly it's worthless. Once it reaches equilibrium, there's no income in there to service your rates. You might as well abandon the land. The whole thing, yeah, I just don't like it, and I don't think it's good. It's good for the nation or for Northland. And yet I got lots of trees and I get some carbon out of them, but I just don't like permanent Pinus radiata carbon forests.
It's strong.
Oh, I'd support the argument, but you can actually look back in history. I think Richard Allspar is a great chap in Darwell who saw the changeover of into pine forests up the Mount north of Darwell, and how Darwell didn't have a UFIA after that. Dairy company closed not soon after. So it does affect the towns a lot, and of course, a lot of this money goes directly offshore, the other side of it. But
Trucks drove all the way through Darwell, right through to Ruka.
They do. We used to have a train that went across to the port. There was 11 unit loads of pine trees a day, which we've lost that because the port's not deep enough. Yeah, big impact for Northland, but this is central government argument, isn't it? Yeah. Maybe we got the wrong Jones here in the room here.
I might add that there's a distinction between productive Pinus radiata forests and carbon farming with Pinus radiata. Very, very two different discussions. Don't want to muddle them.
Yeah, well, it is strange to see that lovely paddocks next to Lake Omapara there being converted into pine forest.
Isn't that criminal?
You know, if there is a better beef raising country in that,
Should hurry up and buy that land. Run the mulcher over it, George.
I had your bank account up. I'll look into that, Jeff. But it is bizarre. That's a beautiful piece of land. And they're going to put pines on it, for goodness sake. All right. Bruce, further on for this report then, please. What's next? We've got quite a bit in here. The risk pool, etc.
Yeah, happy to take any further questions, Chair. I just added the risk pool information, so members are aware of that continuing liability. We are pool of $29,000 that we've had to pay just recently. And there's a couple of new cases that are going through the courts, I understand, in September. So there'd be potentially, if they're lost, then will be further liability for us.
Okay. Bruce, are we able to provide how much we've paid out cumulatively for these sorts of calls? I keep seeing them come through and none of them are significant amounts, but cumulatively they'll add up. Just out of...
Yeah, happy to take an action.
Interest, I guess, for everyone to be aware of.
We can circulate that via email.
Yeah.
I think my question through the chair was that similar to Jono, but also, you know, you're going to pay $29,000. Is the risk still there? You know, is it literally, and you know, how many have claimed, how many are in progress, and how many are potential? I just thought the wording of those letters to you, Bruce and Jono, where you are at risk, you should pay, and I know it's a minimal amount of $29,000, but you know, are we at risk? That's the question I ask you. Are we actually at risk?
I think the answer, Dan, at the moment is we simply don't know, because there's two cases that are going to go back before the courts in September. We don't know what the outcome of those two cases are going to be. If they're against us, obviously, then that we've got a liability that we need to pay. There's ongoing discussions with the reinsurers. That's in London. That's quite complex. I attended the recent webinar with Risk Pool, and it was quite clear that they don't know anything more than what they've provided to us currently, which is a big question mark, and potentially have got some liability in the future depending on how these two cases go. So, yeah, unfortunately, I can't provide any more certainty than that.
Okay.
Well, if we've got uncertainty, we've got risk, and council's the last people standing very often, and the courts love loading it onto a council. So I think we've got risk because the generic of what the court case is about is spread across mainly urban or district councils, I take it. So I think there's quite a lot of risk there, Bruce.
I agree, Joe. I think there is quite a bit of risk. We just simply don't know the quantum of that risk at the moment, given these two cases are before the courts and we haven't had a ruling. So yeah, there is risk.
Do you know when we're due when the ruling is due? Isn't at least then we can quantify when the risk is going to materialise?
I just know that the two cases are scheduled for hearings in September.
We can't really mitigate it, can we? But we're in it.
We're stuck.
We're stuck.
We don't know how long it's going to go on for. It's a bit like leaking homes, isn't it? Yeah. So we know the risk is there. We just don't know how big it is.
And I guess thankfully, when you look at this latest call, which is $3.7 million, our liability for that was $29,000. So we're at the smaller end of the spectrum compared to a lot of councils.
Yes.
Okay, well, it's nice to be informed, even when it's bad news. So, close that item off. Is there any further commentary? People, Jack's got some more. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. My question is about the fact that if risk pool is disappearing, is there an elevated level of risk about other risks that risk pool might have covered, or was that just created to deal with a unique set of risks that we're now sort of residually dealing with? So my question is, with the termination of risk pool, does that expose us to further other risks that we haven't covered?
No, it's we're just for risk pool. It isn't wind down. It's just dealing with those, I guess, those historic claims that come through, and there's no other risk apart from those historic claims. Once those claims are settled, then it'll be wound down and we'll be out of it for good. And then we've got a separate insurance, which has got nothing to do with risk pool. So,
taking over that position.
well,
Yeah, thank you, Bruce.
Once claims are finished, it'll just wind up altogether.
Yeah, but it was there for a reason, to cover us. That's gone.
Yeah, but we've got separate insurances now, not through risk pool,
Thank
to
you.
cover us.
Thank you, Bruce.
No further items for that discussion? We'll move then, please, to 6.5. Back to Mandy. Fraud, corruption and dishonesty activity update. We have a mover, please, to receive the report.
Jeff.
Yes, thank you. And seconded by Deanne. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against?
Two.
Two is enough. What is you? Okay. Take the item as read. Questions, please, from councillors to the report.
Yes, Chair, may I ask, on the dashboard, hey, look, as you know, I've always pushed the dashboard, so thank you very much, team. The item conflict of interest, I see between that and the fraud and corruption and data loss, seems to have the most highest ranking. Is there any other material changes that you think needs to be made inside your systems, Bruce and Jono, to try and mitigate that? It's similar to what we discussed earlier.
No, Dan, I think we're in a good space at the moment. I wouldn't suggest any particular changes to what we're reporting here. I think this is being good. It is risk focused, like that internal audit approach through Deloitte's analytics. So no, I wouldn't recommend any potential changes at the present time.
Thank you.
The data contributing to those assessments, Bruce, and I assume that's not internal data, is it? That's the experience in the wider world, that these are the nature of most common risks?
This would be our own assessment based on our current environment within council.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Just following on from the Deloitte's korero at the start of our agenda, where they said that supplier invoice fraud was one of the most common and prevalent
Mm.
types of fraud that they still find out there. I'm just wondering whether our residual risk, having listened to that, we've rated our residual risk with our mitigations that we've got in place as 4 low. Just wondering, Bruce, whether that residual risk is. I can't think of any other mitigation measures. I'm just wondering if we're underestimating our residual risk, given the feedback that we just received from Deloitte at the start of the meeting.
My thinking was, before Bruce answers, was that it might be common, but it might be low impact. Lots and lots of small invoices rather than a really big supplier invoice fraud event.
I think you raised a good point. I think you raised a good point, John. I think the best of our knowledge, it's tied down really well. It doesn't mean there's room for improvement, so we can take that away and have a look at it.
Just another thought, sorry. Does Deloitte review our risk scoring assessments here?
No.
I wonder if that's something that we would be worthwhile. I saw Bruce running his fingers together on how much cash.
My question would be, is it cost neutral, Jono?
It certainly won't be cost neutral.
Yeah. My answer to Jono, your thoughts there is that because I would suspect this is not a static report, meaning that the risk ratings interchange based on time and place. Time, is that right, Bruce? So while Deloitte identify as that being the highest risk that they've identified, in your current status report you've got here, you've highlighted what's current now. Is that correct? Not just a one-off report.
Correct, yeah.
Well, let's leave it. It was just in my mind as we were talking with Deloitte, and maybe when we do something next with Deloitte, maybe rather than all of them, it's a risk-based approach just to review our own assessment, because otherwise we're just assessing ourselves on our residual risk.
Well, in some respects, but it's actually audit risk is governance monitoring operations. So,
cool.
Okay, it might be a useless exercise. I'm not going to offer an audit. But for most organisations, that's as good as it gets. You actually happen to have a lot more capacity and capability than many others. So, did a pretty good job in that regard. Opinion? Anything further for the report? No. Thank you, Mandy. No? Bruce? We'll take then item. Health and safety activity. That's in the same report, isn't it?
6.6.
6.6.
Yes, not on it. It's,
yeah. 6.6. Mover, please, to receive that report as provided from our advisor.
I'll move. Second.
Thank you, Joe. Jeff, got in fast and early.
No, cut off short.
Yep. Okay. Take the item as read and go to Bruce, please.
I just want to point out a couple of things if we could, Chair. Just the instant reporting. I know I've mentioned this previously, but that's increased. That's up. It's due to our use of our platform called Safety Champion, plus better awareness, encouraging people to raise things. So that's a positive thing. Our lag and lead indicators are showing some positive trends. On page 69, there's a little paragraph there that talks about those positive trends, so it's pleasing to see those. And just also noting the change in the stress survey findings, where workload is reduced from being the top stressor a year ago to now being the third top stressor, and it's fallen from 42% to 20%. So it's a pleasing change, and that's reflected in that risk report as well. And central government changes being a new stressor in the top 3 identified. Other than that, happy to take any questions.
Jack? Jack and Jeff, please.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. Great report, this. I really love it. One tiny little question. A couple of years ago, I asked for, when you report, that's at the top of page 68, you have the empirical number, but I asked for it to be per head count, which gives you like better trends, because we do have a lot more people than we had 3 or 4 years ago. So I hope that it's still included in at least our reports to to council?
Yeah, good point, Jack. I recall that actually.
Because we did do it. We did it for quite a while.
I'll just make make a note and just check to see if we do it per head count. I think, Margaret, we could.
It's a more accurate arbiter, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. But it is a fantastic report, and I congratulate you all.
Jeff?
Just with the near hip reporting, it's great to see that increase because, you know, how do you get trends? But you guys now look at the near hip reporting and see if you can forecast trends through the data.
Yeah, that's right. We do. So I know Tamsin did some analysis per group. Each group broke down the different number of incidents, the types of incidents, and so forth, and circulated that to the group managers. So
yeah, so I've done quite a bit of this myself, running a big, you know, forestry business, and but we even got down to the time of day when incidents happen. Right, time of day, what it was, severity. There's a whole lot of things that you can proceed because why are you keeping incident reporting is to see a trend, right? To stop an incident. So it's very well just getting data, but the data you've got to get the data for the right reasons, and because you're trying to pre-warn a typical incident. So I suppose it's promoted through the staff that we need this incident reporting for the data to make sure that nobody gets hurt. But just to get the data because it's data. Have you been able to have any data that you've been able to use to say, hey, you know, X, Y, Z, we've got now, you know, at this time of the day, we had 24 incidents, you know, because the longer you have the data, it's not just on 1 year. You should keep that data for how long has you been keeping their hip reporting. So they should all go into like an algorithm.
Yeah. That's very, very much the intention.
Right.
So,
okay.
yeah.
That's not there yet.
No, well, we're starting to do some of
Okay.
that analytics.
Yep.
But it's definitely the intention. You're right. That's
Yep.
what we need the data for, right?
Yeah.
Of those trends so we can stop things happening.
Yeah. Do you give chocolate fishes away for the most incident stuff like that? Like, how do you reward the staff for filling out an incident report and their hit report?
Colin's got
Through the chair, yes, we do. We have got our health and safety committee do recognise, if you like, notable incident reports or actions taken by staff. It's not a big sum we've got to reward people, but we do reward whether it's a coffee voucher or whatever.
Because this is a critical part of health and safety is near hip reporting. People don't think it, they don't even think about it. But if you can get data of a trend because you thought it was a near hit and you think, oh, it's not that great, but then you don't realise these 24 people having the same incident.
Yep.
So that's what I'd like to see, you know, in this report to say that we've actually got this data that we've been collecting for 3 years, and we've actually pretty seen that we need to change the way we do something because we've seen that we've had a near miss report on 17 times of doing this event. So that's what I assumed the near hit reporting would be able to pre-see.
Yeah, we certainly do look for those trends, Jeff, and try to identify them. And
No, just checking, because it's quite interesting getting the data right.
Anything further? Council? Management? Very good, thank you then. 6.7. Colin, let's have receiver, please. Movers, please receive Colin's report. Yep. Thank you, John. And seconder. Jeff. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, through the chair.
Yes, please.
Take it as read. Just note that obviously this is the August meeting, so we've actually got full year's data for last year in the report.
April to June.
Any questions?
Anything on a highlight, Colin?
again, it's just been another challenging year in some ways with keeping up and making sure we try to achieve our targets, but we managed to do that pretty well this year. I'm quite proud of the team in that regard. It's having the greater transparency with this audit and risk committee. It's good to actually show that the amount of work we do through the year.
I agree. It's a critical part of our business being able to operate is by you guys getting your job done, isn't it? So Northern Economy is actually waiting on the shoulders of your staff. So
Yep. And often we are at the pointy end of the business, and we keep going as well as we can.
Okay, this is all public, right? All this information got here.
Yep. And often we actually we're just doing the annual national monitoring system reporting to MFE on compliance, consents, and planning stuff. So we're doing that currently, and we generally rate pretty highly.
What's the systemic support like around your workload, please? I'm talking about external to this organisation, Colin.
When you say systemic, I mean consenting, for example. We've always operated on a mixed model where we've got a pretty lean consents team, but we rely on consultants to manage peak workloads. And with the compliance monitoring enforcement side, we do get some support from the EPA with some of the, if you like, significant enforcement action prosecutions. We're involved in one at the moment up in the far north.
Is that being maintained or is that being reduced? Which is really what I was thinking about. Support from the EPA and those sort of the wider institutional arrangements for the functions carried out.
Hasn't been notable to
Okay.
date. We're still hitting,
same levels as previously.
Still got one question.
Yes, please.
So, it's been, Joe Carr's brought this up numerous times about the wastewater treatment plants in koutou, going back to consent to 2021. And you're just saying that you're hoping to get on the top one here on the 24th, page 86 on the bottom, submitted on the application have now withdrawn their wish to be heard. So is that nearly sorted? You've got September 25. Is that
yes?
That's been a long drawn out process.
And that's one of the reasons why it's always a catch-22 of how much pressure we put on to progress this month, because we tried to let the parties resolve issues. And of course, if that happens, then we can often avoid a hearing. So those decisions can be made at staff level. But obviously that increases below the staff level as well. So it's a bit of a catch-22 and pros and cons.
So there has been a level of frustration, as you would have heard, about getting these over the line. So it looks like these are now the other two down below them. You've got the 15th of August here. Has that been resolved on the Far North renewal of the consent for the Koutou wastewater treatment plant?
I would have to get an update for you there. I'm happy to actually.
Oh, it just says like it's over the 15th now.
Yeah.
But these are sort of things, I dare say, at our council meeting next week that Joe Carr will raise. Yeah.
One question for Colin.
Yes, please. Go on.
Is it getting easier or harder? You've been in this job a long time, Colin. Is it getting longer? Do you get consent through? Is it getting harder?
Well, it's always been challenging to those processes. Obviously, with current government and with a greater emphasis on changes to the RMA and new directions, I envisage that there will be improvements over time, but still currently operating under the RMA. So we're still working within that legislation and trying to speed things up regardless of that.
Thanks, Colin.
Anything else from councillors for Colin? Yeah, very good. Thank you then. We'll move then to item 6.8. The municipal wastewater treatment plant
91.
discharge compliance on page 91. And we seek movers to receive this report. Council?
Happy to
Thank
move.
you, John. And someone to second that action?
Yeah.
Thank you,
I'll
Joe.
second.
All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Against? Jack, I'm sorry, you're on mute. Would you start again, please?
Apologies, George. I'm just wondering if we could have discussion on it before we vote on it.
Yes, that's what we're doing.
Yes, we've only received it at this stage.
Oh, okay, fine. Well, I vote to receive it.
Recommendation 1.
Mm.
Yep, so discussion now, please. So, sorry. So would you vote in favour of receiving it then?
Yeah, sure, I did. Yeah, thank you.
Good. Okay, any against? No? Well, let's discussion please to the report before we move to the second recommendation. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to ask Colin your opinion. You put this forward, status option 3. I have your opinion why you've promoted option 3.
Yeah, it's I suppose there's, option 2 and 3 talk about increased enforcement action, formal enforcement action. I think option 3, a higher level enforcement action, particularly things like enforcement orders through the court, in our experience has had, I suppose, greater influence on the, if you like, behaviour aspect of the party we're taking action against, because those enforcement orders go through the court, granted by the court, and the court takes them very seriously.
So you're saying that's a slow option?
Well, no, I'm saying the enforcement orders tend to get
More action.
More attention from the people that the action's been taken against.
Yeah.
It is court deals with enforcement orders a lot faster than prosecutions. And that's the big benefit of an enforcement over prosecution. Some of our prosecutions, particularly the defendants elect trial by jury,
yes,
are now taking several years, and it's just an ongoing matter that we have to keep an eye on. There's ongoing costs. Whereas enforcement order, the courts tend to close very promptly. So that's a preferred option in terms of actually trying to get an outcome we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I believe it's a great outcome. I was just asking you what your opinion was. So.
But there's still a cost.
Yeah, but there's costs in all of these. Yeah. Kia ora, Chair, if I could just speak to it as well, just to respond and support what Colin's saying. But kind of like council goes through peaks and troughs and how it holds district councils to account for their municipal wastewater plants. Some councils will come in and go, don't take formal enforcement action against them and really push them, because you're basically using ratepayer money to take them to court, and then it's ratepayer money on the other side that is having to defend the district council defending themselves, and then paying a prosecution or paying. So Colin sort of goes through peaks and troughs of councils going, no, work with district councils and get them to proactively address the matter and have up-to-date consents, versus what we're talking about now of we've waited a hell of a long time and we've tried all the proactive stuff to get district councils to lift their game in this space. And actually what Colin's saying here is getting some governance mandate and support to push harder, but there will be criticism in pushing harder in the regulatory space that
district councils and potentially communities will go away using ratepayer funds to take another ratepayer organisation to court and pushing them in this space. So it's a balancing act, I guess. But what Colin's saying here is that actually, yes, we need to push harder. We're the regulator. We need to push harder, and he's identified that the use of enforcement orders is one of the ones that you're likely to get the most influence and impact. That's what you're saying, Colin?
And Colin, because the money spent on defending a court case could actually go into getting the job done.
And that's always the argument of not taking them to court. You know, so and that's the classic. They'll go, don't take me to court. It's just taking ratepayer money away from actually being able to put it into the wastewater plant. But equally, then in 3 years' time, you look back and go, well, nothing's happened.
Yeah, could have gone on. So it's a
quick thing I just noticed when I flick through the version I've got online, there seems to be a truncation in the report, so that might have come through just. If you go to page 93, it's like the consideration aid has been lost from the report, or part of it's been reported below, so there might have been something happened during the
formatting issue.
Publication of the report.
Okay, well, let's go to Jack, then Joe.
Yeah, thank you, George. Look, thank you, Colin. I really appreciate that you've brought matters, clarified matters, brought them to a head to us. I think we all agree that option 2 is just not a goer. Option 1 obviously is not. We cannot keep doing this. Option 2 is just, a waste of everybody's time and money. But I echo the sympathies that sentiments actually expressed by Jeff and others about option 3. We'd spend a lot of money in court and we wouldn't necessarily we might or might not get a faster build. My actual question is more around the a need for wider consideration of option 4. And I'm not talking about just us building it out of the goodness of our heart. I'm talking about a commercial proposition. Now, we've already set a precedent for this. We built a service centre for Dargaville as a commercial proposition, and we're doing pretty well out of it. I'm not saying we should be providing wastewater plants just because we can make money out of them, but it is one way of fixing the problem. I'd like us to quantify what a good land-based wastewater plant for Kaikoui. I guess Kaikoui is probably first cab off the rank, even if it isn't. It seems to me like it is. But let's assume it is. That we cost out what it would cost, go to Far North and said, we'll build it and you can pay for it, and just make them an offer. So I don't necessarily agree with your comment that long protracted process to follow, which is likely to be politically untenable to district councils. I'm not so sure about that. Obviously, we've not discussed this with them, and I hope that we don't, because we don't want to set any expectations that we're going to swoop in like, like Father Christmas and solve their problems. But I'd like to see us examine that option, or a range of options of providing the infrastructure at a commercial return. Well, sorry, at least a cost recovery basis for the regional investment. Thank you.
I'll try to attempt to respond to that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's probably not a question for the Reg Services managers. I mean, it's not a fair question to put to you, Colin, and I don't really expect you to have to answer it, by the way. Your job is to ensure compliance. So, but I think that it's worth us getting, Daryl or someone like that to provide some answers for us. I don't want to put you on the spot here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Jack. And I won't offer comment. Joe, and then John.
Yeah. Thank you, George, and thank you, Jack, for what you've expressed there. I really think we should investigate the viability of doing what you say. Even it must be viable at some rate of return anyway. I noticed further on in the report that Kaikoui is in the process of renewing their consent, and they've only got two submitters, and it escaped me that was happening. We can't swim in our river, the Waimea River. It's in the extreme zone, the summer and winter. Some it's a 1 in 20 dilution from koutou effluent at that point. That's freshwater dilution. And they're talking about best practical option. Well, if the best practical option is what we've got, well, and I'm a great supporter of BPOs. I just asked. So I think Jack really said it really well, is that we should look at the land-based option, investigate it for koutou, because they seem incapable of doing it, and they keep proposing to put it up on the white pipe clay hills, which got no, doesn't absorb any water. So I'd like to see something like that happen. And I know it's another forum, but yeah, thank you.
John.
Chair. Yeah, I hope we're not going to take the place of Whanau District Council. We're not in the habit of building wastewater plants. We've never built one. But if we could take it to the last stage where it could be seen as economic growth, and that could be used for the, I thought some of our elite soils in koutou, particularly for pine tree nurseries and that sort of thing, that could be a win-win. Getting back to the point of option 3, I relate this back to Nate, where we had to register all our animals, and about 17% of farmers were doing it. And there was no one out there actually policing it. So no one took, well, the whole thing fell apart. It wasn't working. We got eating bogus and we're in trouble. So I think you do have to take this approach. And this will probably jump other councils into line with it, seeing that we are taking a harder line. So I would support recommendation 3. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Recommendation then, which is the body of the report. No, well then we move then please to recommendation 2, which is that the committee endorses option 3 of this report with regular reporting to this committee. Can I have a mover for that, please? Thank you, Jeff. And second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Joe. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against?
Yeah, I'm against. I think we need to be looking at teasing out the options and the various options under option 4. I think we're just really missing the boat here. I think we're just delaying it. It'll end up costing. It's a political solution for NRC, but it's not a solution for koutou. And I think I'd like to see you spend a bit of time. I mean, you can adopt this measure as a transition or temporary or an immediate way forward, but I can't see it working unless you get some action within the next year. This option 3 will be a failure. So I would prefer us, but we can still do both. We can still adopt option 3 and then ask staff to have a preliminary look at what a plant might cost. I just think we need to be much more far-sighted, and just bear in mind, folks, that we're probably going to be a unitary council in 6 years. So let's get ahead of that. Let's go into a unitary council with a credit against our name and not an inherited debt. Thank you. So I vote against it.
Yes, it's recorded. Thank you, Jeff.
Yep. Okay. Well, we've voted to support it.
Yes.
But, local waters is just going through the moment. So we've got 3 councils that have agreed to work together, and I'm sure that we will see progress around this, hopefully. So I think the stance that we're taking now is the right stance, is that we're dealing with the issue at the moment. We can't foresee what's going to unlock out of local waters done well. And hopefully wastewater treatment plant and government support will bring all these issues to a forefront.
Yeah, and then there's John's point.
Yep.
About going towards, if it's moving towards economic development, then it may fit inside the policy space much more easily for the regional council to advance either loans, grants, loans or equity into wastewater treatment plants.
But I think, George, in your area, reserve contributions would assist in the development of your country, in your northern area.
Yep.
So there's lots of things to happen yet.
Yes, I was thinking about asking if you would move away from kaikwe, please, and turn attention further. So I would be much appreciated, but you know. Very good. Now we move to item 7.0. These items with the public excluded and are referred to on page 114. I was going to bridge it with us.
Who was yes. Yeah, well, I'll read the minutes and I can.
So do we have a mover though and a shake?
I'll move them. Yep.
Thank you. And Jack?
Moving to the committee, you mean?
Moving into public excluded, are we? Or we confirming the minutes?
No, public excluded.
Okay.